Chiranjeev, you can start.
Yeah, exactly. Good morning, everyone. Entrepreneurship involves dealing with a lot of uncertainty, which includes overwhelming factors to decide on and unexpected dead ends. Businesses always start with clarity in their goals, design strategies to achieve them, and implement those strategies. They also need to have a resilient mindset to deal with the pressure and challenges that come with starting a new business. It is not an easy task to get everything right to get the business running. To discuss about such concerns, MBA at IIT Kanpur is thrilled to host Mr. Vijay Sivaram, CEO of Quess IT Staffing and Quess Search and Recruitment, for the 30th episode of Kaleidoscope to share his insights on the topic, Getting Entrepreneurship Right. Mr. Vijay has been a founding member of Quess Corp since its inception in 2007. The organization is the biggest integrated business services provider in the country. Mr. Vijay has been instrumental in grounding, innovating, and growing Quess's vast offerings. He has exposure to all the platforms at Quess, from workforce management and operating asset management to tech services. In his current role, he is responsible for setting the strategic vision and direction for his focus areas, while supporting and nurturing the leadership under his mandate to execute with confidence towards success. Mr. Vijay holds a Master of Business Administration from INSEAD, Singapore, and a PGDBM from the Loyola Institute of Business Management, India. Now, without further delay, I'd like to request Mr. Vijay to kickstart the session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Chiranjeev. It's an absolute pleasure. It's first and foremost, I must apologize to all of you to get you on a Sunday. I'm sure you guys would have had much better plans on a Sunday morning. So, but thank you so much for hosting me. What I will do today, and possibly the next 30 minutes, is try to just take you through some pivotal aspects of my journey here at Quess. When we started this company in 2007, I still remember one of our first meetings. First one was to decide what is it that we really want to solve. Now, this is way back in 2007. And those days, even the word entrepreneur was not very commonly used. In fact, for a couple of years, I wouldn't even go to my customers and tell them that I'm an entrepreneur because I was only 27 at that point of time. And I was worried that if my customer thought I was too young to run a business. But of course, today that has changed a lot. And that has become a lot different. Today, a lot younger people also call themselves entrepreneurs and drive large businesses. So this 30 minutes, I will take you through just some key messaging. In other words, some focused gyan. And I'll just try to take you as to why I think they're important. None of this is unique to me. None of this will be unique to you. You might have heard some of it before. You might have seen some of it before as well. So apologies for that, for being plagiarized in taking quality content from the web. But but the stories that I will talk about will be more relevant to what I have done in the past. So, Chiranjeev, is my screen visible?
Yes, sir, we can see your screen.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Yeah. So, you could stop me, ask me questions anytime in the between, or I'll be happy to take a few queries if you have any at the end of it. Right. So I'll leave it to you guys. My slides are fairly light on content. It's more on the messaging. So feel free to stop. Right. Just a little bit about myself. I grew in a small town down south in a place called Cochin in Kerala. I grew up there. Moved from Cochin to Chennai for my college. I then started my journey with GE in Hyderabad. I was working in Hyderabad, but it involved shifts. I thought maybe something better could be there without shifts. That's when I got into this organization called Adecco. Now, Adecco at that point of time was the world's largest staffing firm. And when I joined them, they were going to be India's largest player as well. And I was part and parcel of the journey in Adecco. Somewhere between, worked there for a long time. And then in 2007, couple of us at Adecco decided to take a plunge and say that we could solve some of our customer problems even more effectively if we were to run it on our own. And that's when we started this company called Quess. Now, many of you may not know Quess as a singular brand. I don't know how many of you would have researched into Quess, but I'm going to take you through some key aspects of what Quess is. And I'm sure when I finish that slide, next slide, you'll know exactly how big we are and why we are so large, and why it's so exciting to be part of this journey. So we started Quess in 2007. I was fortunate enough to be chosen to also lead and build. So this is like my second entrepreneurial venture within Quess itself, to build our Asia Pacific region. So I went to the Philippines, that nice picture on top. I was there for a year and a half. I also went and set up Malaysia. And while I was working in Malaysia, I got a chance to rekindle some part of an MBA through INSEAD. I think in culmination, this is who I am. I'm married to a dentist, and I've got one son. Cool. So just like cliched, stereotypical startups, we also started in a house. If any of you are from Bangalore, there's a place called Koramangala, and we started in a 3-bedroom house on the first floor of an independent house. The arrow pointing there. The hall was used for most of the operational workforce. We had an HR team that used one of the bedrooms. We had the CFO and the finance team in one of the bedrooms, and the group leadership in another room. And that's how we started. So very cliched, very stereotypical for any startups at that point of time. But we started with a brand called IKEA, IKYA, which later got rechristened to Quess, and I'll explain that journey as well. But when we started IKEA, we had this one thought that we wanted, is that we wanted to do anything or everything around talent. So if an organization wanted a format of talent, we should have a solution around it. But very, very interestingly, we found out that by 2008, that is 1 year down the line, we realized that the potential of outsourcing had changed in India. So while in the first format of talent, we worked on doing outsourcing of talent, in 2008, we realized that the people problem was outsourced in many areas. For example, if I were to take IIT Kanpur's building as an example, you have your professorial staff, you have your housekeeping staff, you have your catering staff, you have security guards. Many of this today is outsourced, except for the professors. Even some of the professors itself are on contract. And many other jobs are outsourced. So we realized that a lot of companies today have begun to outsource stuff. And this is extremely common in US and Europe. It was when my parents or grandparents' generation believed in government jobs, that migrated to private jobs. From private jobs, we believed in not just private jobs, but also contractual workforce, where we hire people on contractors. Today, we're talking about gig, which is even more flexible. So the workforce of the future is fairly fluid. Even just seeing the news around Twitter, you would know that even a full-time job is no more a full-time job. You could lose a job anytime, right? So everything today is becoming very fluid, and so is workforce.
I think sir's video, there's a net issue. Let me contact him.
Sorry, did I lose you guys?
Yeah, for a brief few seconds, so it's fine. You can resume from where you went.
Is the screen back?
Yes, so we can see all right.
Cool. So as an HR services firm, it is pretty simple. We would hire talent, put them onto our payroll, and deploy them to customers. But then slowly we started realizing that there was a lot more than just deploying talent. We looked at the technology industry and the BPO industry. We realized that while outsourcing is huge there, it is a function of people. And the people were the reason that technology and outsourcing became who they are today. And so we realized we'll take a plunge into technology and outsourcing. And then by 2020, we were clocking close to around 384,000 employees, right? And then we realized that we were getting too big in each of the spaces. And then we decided to platformize the solution. So in 2016, we listed in the Indian Stock Exchange. Now, in many ways, if you know how the entrepreneurial journey works today, you raise capital. So we raised capital in 2008. In 2014, the investment firm, Private Equity Partners, they exited the company. And in 2014 came Canadian Mahaut Fairfax Services. Fairfax, you may know, is owner of the Bangalore Airport, is owner of Catholic Syrian Bank, Thomas Cook. So Fairfax invested in us. And in 2016, just like any entrepreneurial journey would culminate, we went listing and we got equitized, like I put it. And then we became a public limited company. But it didn't stop us from growing. It made us focus. But we realized that we needed to formulate a strategy around what we called as a platform strategy. So we called all the talent-linked work into what is called WFM, which is workforce management. Then we called the second platform, which was into asset management, which was more into facility management, security guard services and all that. And then we have technology services, technology platform, which is a call center, IT software, etc. So today we are around 470,000 people. Now, just to give you a hindsight of what 470,000 people mean, we're just second in the country in terms of private employment. That means every month, 470,000 people get payrolled in our employment. Now, the beauty about this is, I was just doing a report, is that in that 470,000 people, close to 197 people have joined us in the last 6 months who have never been in a formalized workforce. So I mentioned some time back about government jobs moving to private jobs, moving to contractor jobs, moving to gig workforce today. But a very interesting trend has also happened in the last 5 years. India has been seeing a huge amount of talent inflow from an informal sector to a formal sector. So, which means an employee today who was working just on a daily wage, today is getting a PF, today is getting an ESI, which in other words is now today contributing to the tax system of the country and the statutory system of the country. And by doing so, the government earns that much more tax and revenue. And by doing so, that comes back into the economy as more tax breaks and stuff like that, which means more investment. So what I'm trying to tell you is that when I say I lead 470,000 people, I'm also a significant economic impact in the country. My exchequer, just payment towards PF and tax, etc., for the first 6 months alone is just 2,000 crores. It's significantly large in terms of that. But why is that people may not know the word Quess? Right? People may not have heard, you wouldn't have seen it on the roads, you wouldn't have seen it like a brand. It's a B2B brand, but still nobody would have heard it. Why is that? Because the staff that we hire represent a brand. So to give you an example, guys, today, if any of you have a Samsung phone and you walk into a Samsung store, the person selling you that phone is most likely a Quess employee. If you walked into a Bata store in most of the shops in India, you would most likely be interacting with a Quess employee. You order something out of Amazon, the guy on the call center, the guy on the chat support, and the guy packing and delivering the product could also be an employee, of course. If you had bought a recent consumer product from Chroma or from Reliance Digital and you took a consumer loan from Bajaj Finserv, the guys making you sign those documents could be a Quess employee. You take a loan from Axis Bank, the guy signing the documents, collecting the documents, and verifying the documents is an employee of Quess. You take a credit card from SBI, the guy selling you the credit card and taking those documents, again, an employee of Quess. Let's say the towers that you have in and around IIT Kanpur, the telecom towers, those are operated and maintained by Quess employees. So that's the length and breadth of Quess today. There'll be a touch point in every single day of your lives. Now, so think of this in 3 parts. 1, the economic impact that an organization like this does. 2, the social impact that because you're getting people jobs, you're making people secure. You're allowing them to come into the formalized workforce, which then creates a career path. And last but not the least, the fact that you can impact people through touch and feel. The fact that you're doing something for the service of the employee. So I think that's what's really driven us over the years and how we've evolved over the years as such. So I think very soon you'll also get to know about our 5 lakh employee base that we're counting, and maybe in a few quarters we'll possibly beat TCS as well, which is currently the largest in the country. So it's a pleasure to talk to you on behalf of Quess. So now I'll go straight into the topic. This is just a little bit about Dilbert's always my favorite. I don't know if you guys follow Dilbert. Dilbert's possibly my most referenced point in most discussion. It's easier because I think he understands business language much more than most colleagues, I think, nowadays. So you'll find a little bit of Dilbert in whatever I do. But what I'm trying to tell you today is that journey from 2007 and 15 years thereon, there were certain things that we saw, we learned, we unlearned. There were certain things that we evolved into. And I'm going to capture those in what the next few slides are. So I'll start with the basic first one, which I think this is, again, I'm sure you would have seen it in a lot of places. It's profoundly important. I cannot even put it together as to how important culture is for an organization. So as many of you may enter an organization or may decide to start something of your own, if you have not defined what culture is for you, it's not easy. It's not easy. It's not something which you can write in a pen and paper and say, this is my culture. No. It's about the way you work. It's about the way you say things. It's about the way you respond. It's the way you collect stuff. It's the way you pay for stuff. Basic thing like paying salary on the first of the month, paying your rents on the first of the month. That itself is culture. So a lot of times, especially when you come out of very top tier MBA schools, you assume that you have a fantastic strategy. You assume that you have a fantastic idea, but you forget that that's useless without culture. So to start off this conversation, my only take would be is that when we started Quess, we realized that we had to be a people company because we are dealing with people. Everything that we do is about people. So there was no possible way to build culture within the organization without respecting and enhancing it. So we used a very simple theorem. We didn't want to overthink it and give huge mission statements and vision statements saying that this is the whole life you go. I'm sure many of you in your MBAs learn that today, what is mission, vision, etc. and all that stuff. But we wanted to make it simple. So we called our entire culture to be around what we call as FIT, okay, which is focus, integrity, and teamwork. That's it. So if there's something that we do it with a lot of focus. If there's something that we do it with a lot of straight, honest reviews and feedback. And whatever we do it as a team. So in other words, we created a culture in the very beginning as a small team to make sure that these things don't get questioned. Yeah, we spoke a lot about strategy. We should set up this business. We should talk about this solution. We should build this pricing model. But if we didn't have the fit volume, I can assure you that Quess wouldn't be where it is today. So it's very important that you get your basics right in terms of culture. And that's why I put it wide up front as such. Now, this is a question for all of you. I don't know if you've seen this slide before. It has been doing the rounds. These are two American companies. Any guesses? Which two companies are these? Down is the year and revenue on the left, on the y-axis. Any guesses? Take some wild guesses if you want. Nobody?
So we have a couple of answers in the chat box.
Was it?
Meta and Walmart. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Meta, Walmart. Okay, go on. Pharma company. So easy, no? Very generic. Go on. Look at the year. Look at the timeline. 1 year close because of the timeline. Look at the timeline. Twitter. Twitter is on everyone's mind today, I guess. Okay. One of you said one correct answer. It's Zoom and Apple. So I don't think so. I need to explain why Zoom, right? All of you know why Zoom. Because we are on Zoom today. I'm sure 3 years ago, possibly Chiranjeev would be asking me to come over to the campus. Today, IIT Kanpur decided to go on cost savings and say, no, we'll do Vijay on Zoom. Why? Because Zoom came about in 2021, COVID time, it really shot up. But what happened to Zoom after COVID kind of settled down? It didn't move much. It had to come down. You know, a lot of talk about these edtech companies. I'm sure you're reading about it. Now parents are sending kids back to school. They don't need those online applications anymore. So now you need to work back on the offline model and not exactly on the online model. It will help. Online model will be a substitute for many things, but it will not be. So Zoom's revenues, but so those who cashed in Jan 21 would have made a lot of money. But if you look at Apple, they stayed steady. They didn't try to overdo things. They stayed steady in what they want to focus on. What I'm trying to tell about this is that as you become an entrepreneur, as you grow as an entrepreneur, when I say entrepreneur, it is not necessarily that you have to start your own company. As an organization employee also, you will start a lot of things in your career. And you have to make sure that you know that there is an up and down. There will be surges. Quite opposite, there could be also downturns. But it is very clear for you to stay steady on what your culture is and what your core operating requirements are. If you don't know what those are, you can easily get swayed by these ups and downs. In other words, when you run a business or when you run a team or when you lead a unit, remember one thing, be practical and rational about the decisions you make, not emotional. Because the minute you get emotional, this is what happens. You go up and you come down. Or you go down, way down, and then you try to realize that you need to go back. Right? So when these things happen, when you look at organizations or when you look at statistics around decision making, etc., you will always land up at two choices. You'll always look at you'll say, I will blame someone else for this. And this could be very relevant in your own college today, or even if in your past school life. You have the show of hands here. Do you allow that here?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So just curious, if given these two choices to complain or to change, how many of you would choose change? Show of hands. Most of you have chosen change, which is possibly the most normal behavior that I would expect from you. But I can quite guarantee you, all those who said change would complain possibly sometimes. Okay, it's easy to pick up the right answer, but when you work in a business context, I think the natural behavior for all of us is to go complain. He didn't do it. I didn't get the report on time. My system was not working. I had a downtime from the tech issue. I was waiting for a report to come. Now, I'm not saying complaining is wrong. I don't think so. That's the message I'm trying to say. Contextually, you will have to reflect if there is something that you haven't changed about getting it done. Because when you decide to choose change, you are choosing a path which you're not comfortable with, or you're choosing a path which you're not used to. And therefore, it is always tougher to choose change than complain. But if need be, you may want to complain, you may need to have to. It's not wrong to complain. Because if something is not working right, today organizations are extremely hierarchical, bureaucratic, and today large organizations are extremely complex. In startups today, organizations are very founder-driven. So, sometimes you may want to bring out the complaint to make sure that you set your structures right. Because if you know your culture, if you know your values, you need to know when it's not working and you need to complain about it. No worries. But my request to each one of you is,
I think there's a net issue again.
Chiranjeev, please contact him once.
Yes, I'm here.
Sir, you are muted.
See you, sir.
Okay. I guess one thing that I have to change is possibly my internet connection, maybe. I don't know. So he talks so much about change. But anyways, so the next point that I wanted to call out is about uncertainty. I think today a lot of B schools teach you how recessions work. A lot of B schools also in some way teach you how to predict recessions as a business head. But I've seen very few B schools that actually teach how do you manage if you are going through a recession, or how do you manage when you go, because I think today uncertainty is possibly a given thing. If someone comes to me looking for a job and tells me that I want to have a steady career and grow sequentially, I would be worried, because today you are expected to manage ups and downs in your business. You are expected to stay ahead of the curve always. You should be knowing when your recession is coming. You should be knowing if there is a recession, what are your backup plans? How do you reduce cost? How do you play with the variability of cost? Why is contractual workforce today so important? Because it allows your fixed cost to become variable. So how do you plan all that? I think that becomes very important. So as you enter your corporate streams or your entrepreneurial streams, remember one thing, that you have to accept uncertainty. And if you are not used to it, again, start working on it right now. Simple things in life. If you are not used to doing things outside of your framework, purposely change your framework. If you get up at 6 every day, try 1 week getting up at 5. Get yourself used to uncomfortable situations. Right? It's like a diet. Some people don't get successful with their diet plans only because of the fact that it's uncertain for them. They're used to a certain method that they follow. And it's important that you keep trying new things. Put yourself in uncomfortable solutions. If you guys are in finance, if you guys are in procurement, supply chain, systems, etc., and all this stuff, a lot of people tend to assume that these jobs are extremely process-centric, but actually nowadays it's all extremely uncertain. Rules change, structure, systems change. Am I audible now?
Yes, sir,
Yes.
you're audible.
So I was saying that the reward for good work is more work. And I think this is a strong belief that I have in today's work-life culture in most organizations. It's very, very important that each one of you realize that doing a good job does not always have to end up in getting more money or a better title. You should vouch to and consistently try to get more work. I know it'll sound funny, Vijay, I already work for 10 hours, 12 hours in my day. Why would I want more work? More work is a function of more responsibility. More responsibility is a function of more learning. More learning is a function of faster career. A lot of people tend to miss out on this. They tend to assume that if someone gives them more work, that they should be compensated for doing that more work. Yeah, we could continue reading books about work-life balance. We could continue reading a lot of gyan about making sure you need to know how to pace your time, etc. But as you start your careers, as you start entering a lot of your work experience and you worked in companies, today it's about how much more can you handle in that 8 hours and how well you can execute them. Again, that doesn't mean you keep asking for work left, right, and center. You should know how much you can handle also. Right? But don't always assume that it is linked to compensation, it is linked to a title. It has to be linked to responsibilities and what more can you do as such. I think a common theme for entrepreneurs today is the fear of that they don't have a fear for failure. I've just tweaked that a bit. I think experience is what we give the name for our mistakes. People tend to assume that they've solved a problem and now they've learned from it. But it's about making sure that that counts as your experience. And then, because I was seeing a very nice video recently, and they were telling me they were talking about this gut feeling that people have. Now, a lot of people make a lot of very important decisions in their life by using the gut feeling. Now, the gut feeling is nothing but a function of your experiences throughout your life. You start seeing the first 5 minutes of a movie, you get a gut feeling that this is going to go well. Because you compare it with the experiences that you've seen movies in the past. You interview a candidate, you interview a person, you get the first 3 minutes, that's it. Because the employer has seen or assumed or got a gut feeling that this person is going to make it out through. Right? So it's very, very important to know what your experiences are, even if you have failed, and what are you learning from those experiences. So do not fear to fail, but at the same time, make sure that once you've learned it, it goes back into your head. This is another favorite slide of mine. I think I'm writing I just wrote an article. It will come out on LinkedIn as well very soon. This is curiosity versus competence. Now, many of you, when you started your job, many of you who had work experience, or when you started taking up your first college campus, you all were very curious. You used to ask questions as like, where is the lab? Where is the professor? Where is the assignment? Where are the answers? Where are the notice boards? Where's the information? So as and when you complete time, that curiosity gets answers. Those questions that you ask become into answers. And as they become into answers, they become your competence. Now you wouldn't go back and again ask, where is the notice board? Where is the classroom? You wouldn't. Because that answer has already been answered. And now you're competent enough on your own. And same thing happens at work. When you come into a job, when you start a new career, you ask questions. How does this work? How does the SAP talk to this system? How do you perform this action? What happens if this happens? What happens if a customer calls? You start asking questions. And as you learn more questions, you start becoming more and more competent. And then you know what decisions are made. So the generation that I worked for and the generation that I grew, you had to consistently be more and more competent, which means you need to always become more and more knowledgeable. And therefore, you became a competent leader, which is a very common terminology in those days. As such, I think the world is changing now. Now, it's without doubt, you still have to be competent. You cannot be incompetent. So, no doubt, you have to keep asking questions and learn things. But you cannot fall into a trap of becoming an intellectual, arrogant person. Then I know everything. You have to be curious as well. And today, a lot of leaders where they are extremely competent for 15, 20 years in running the company. But the minute they kind of start asking questions, their curiosity level comes down and they become arrogant. And then slowly the fall happens after that. So my request to each one of you is that as you enter your work streams, as you are in college, keep asking questions. They always say, no, there's never a dumb question. There's actually a principle behind it. If you guys read up on it, it's called Peter's principle. The Peter's principle actually states that you eventually become so competent that you end up becoming incompetent because you have lost the art of asking questions as such. So make sure that you keep asking questions, make sure that you keep getting more and more competent and make it go hand in hand. This is one of the last few slides. I think on the entrepreneurship front, how to make it right. I think I talked about culture over strategy. I talked about doing work right. I talked about making sure that you're competent as well as curious. And I also talked about, uncertainty and things like that. But there is no entrepreneur that I have seen successful without being strong in execution. Every job today requires you to execute. You have to get things done. Don't leave anything hanging. It doesn't matter if there are 15, 20 people involved, but it is your role and your responsibility to get it done. Execute, execute, execute. I can assure you, in the last 2 years, 3 years after COVID has happened, your management consulting firm, whether you want McKinsey, you want to talk PCG, you talk PwC to EY, all of them. Today, they are in the execution business. They are not just an advisory anymore. They're all in the execution business. They're all asking for implementation of projects, implementation of digital solutions, etc. Yes, they would advise as well, but they also execute. So today, execution is the name of the game. If you're not comfortable getting it done, start working on it. Get people who can help you get the job done. How do you plan your day? How do you plan to, what's your outcome? What is the expectation of you, etc. So, because most people think they know what they're good at. They're usually wrong. You have to keep improving because the world is moving too fast. Right? All of you will be starting your career exploration, and this is going to be possibly your journey. It's going to be as complex as you. You need to reflect. You need to have plans. Don't overdo your plans. Don't try to create a huge aspirational goal that I want to be CEOs and boards of companies and investor and become an entrepreneur myself. And don't try to overwhelm yourself. Go simple. Understand what you're strong and what you're good at, what more you need to improve on. I'll give you a very simple example. There may be a few of you that may be damn good in terms of what you do, but your communication skill may be weak. And just that change alone will take you far ahead than where you are. But a lot of people tend to assume, I'm good. No, so my communication skill, even if it is little bad, it's okay. But you lose that much of mileage. Make sure that you're asking yourself these questions, or ask your friends, ask your coach, ask your mentor, where do you think I need to pick up? Right? Nobody's going to ask you whether you got a gold medal or whether I've been recruiting candidates for the last 25 years. Never have I got a customer calling me up, and I work with the top 500 of the companies of the world, and nobody has come back and told me I want a gold medalist. They'll tell me I want someone who's smart. I want someone who can talk well. I want someone who knows the subject, who knows the domain. And that's what you guys need to focus on. So don't try to overwhelm yourself with a lot of exploration around how your career is built. Know exactly what you want. Give yourself 3 options. Know exactly how you want to reach there. Put yourself a note in your head that this is how I want to build. These are the skills I need to add on, and then grow on that. I think this is the last. I think 3 slides more. So this is another very important slide in today's context. If you're not in being visible, you will go slowly. You need to be visible. You need to network more. You need to know more people. You need to be connected to a lot more people. Just LinkedIn alone is enough. A very active LinkedIn play itself is enough. But if you're not visible enough today, you will not be considered for a lot of things today. Now, that doesn't mean you put a lot of unnecessary crap onto LinkedIn or any other pages. Now, Facebook is social, it's your personal. Don't try to overwhelm yourself by doing professional stuff there. LinkedIn is professional. Don't try to put too much of happy birthday stuff there. No. So make sure you know the differences. Publish posts. If you like, let's say you love tennis or you love F1 racing, make it into a management thing and put it up on LinkedIn. People will start reading. People will start looking at you as thought leaders. It may be irrelevant to you. It may be irrelevant to your job. But if you have a passion on something, convert it into something that will make you more visible. Let's say if you're damn good at your job, use your job to become more visible. Talk about the solutions that you've had. Talk about the solutions that you've created, the people that you've worked with. Thank people that you've worked with. Make sure that you get visible enough. If you don't get visible and if you're not networked, then I can quite confidently tell you in today's world, you are going one step back than one step forward. Now, networking doesn't, of course, have to be only social. It can be physical as well. Even today, whenever I travel to any city, I make it a point to meet at least 1 or 2 people outside of my work network. Because after you enter your career, you will end up having a lot of work friends. but it's important to keep connected with people that are not necessarily linked to your work. Learn from other industries, learn from other sports, learn from other passions. Make sure that you know very clearly how the world is moving. That makes you more and more evolved as a person and more smarter as a person as such. So don't forget to network. Remember to network. Many of you will get into the entrepreneurship journey, or like I said, within a company, make sure that you give ideas and you have to execute those ideas. Do not forget the key aspect of having an executive presence. Know your gravitas, how much you command the room. How long have you been able to stand in the center of, say, 50 people in your class and are able to deliver a speech without reading from the presentation? The minute you read from a PPT, you have lost half your audience. Your PPT is only something that needs to be behind you. Your PPT is something that will only remain in the background. You are the one presenting it. You need to have the authority and the expression to present it. Practice, practice, practice. Nobody can get perfect here. You have to find your voice as a strong leader. You'll need to know. So I remember when I was doing my INSEAD MBA, we used to actually have a program about what we call as I own my room. And they used to train us on how we can own a room, how we can say the right things in front of people, how you can have eye contact with everyone, how you can, without seeing in the slides behind you, know exactly what you're talking about. So whether it's the way you dress, whether it's the way you speak, the way you emote, the way you show authority, all this have to be trained. There are many YouTube videos or books that are around this. You don't need to, none of these things that I told you are rocket science. Okay. Pick up the ones where you think you're weak in, and only you can know where you're weak in. And your friends can tell you as well. And start working on that. So last slide. As you guys work over the next 2 years, study the next 2 years, I just want to leave these points with you. Some of you may not like it the way it is written, but I believe it's very relevant. A job or a career is not always about money. Pick up something that you will enjoy working in. This is not the stage to make tons of crores of rupees. You will get there. Many of you are going to get there. But if you start thinking money, I spent that much money for this, I need to make it all back. I'm not too sure if it really will take you ahead. You may, but I don't think so. Never succumb to this line of let's settle first. Let me settle down in my job. Let me settle down in my family. Let me settle down with my investments. Let me settle down with my bank. It's never going to change. As you grow in your career, as you increase your portfolios of investments, your life, your family, etc., your needs will consistently change. That's why consumerism is consumerism. It makes you want to have more. So don't fall into the trap of let's settle first, because then you're always searching for something. Know fully that your goalpost will change. And if your goalpost is changing, then keep working towards it. But don't fall into the trap. A great idea does not make you an entrepreneur. I think, again, huge mistake. I have solved this problem. I've got a great idea. No. Do you know how you're going to execute it? Do you know where your revenue is going to come from? Do you know where the profit is going to come from? Do you know what people you need for that? Those are the things that matter, not just an idea. Always, always have a mentor. Have someone you can reach out to. Have someone you can talk to. Preferably someone who knows more than you, who has more experience than you, who's worked in problems before. You don't need to stay with one mentor. You can have multiple mentors as well, right? But your spouse, partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, your boss, they are not mentors, because they will always wish you well. You don't have to worry about that. And they will advise you. Whether you like it or not, they will advise you. But identify people in your networks or beyond your networks who will genuinely look at your career path ahead. Identify mentors. There are a lot of places where you can find mentors. It's not tough at all. Some of them are paid, some of them are not paid. But as you grow in your career, keep changing your mentors too. Because each stage of your life will require a different type of mentor. If today communication is your problem, make sure you find a mentor who can help you there. If sales pitching is your problem, find a mentor who's in sales. Excellent. Right? Remember, Asia is rising, India is rising faster. Okay, I went abroad, I went to Malaysia, I went to Philippines. When I was told to come back and run the large business in India, a lot of people asked me, why you want to go back? Abroad is better, you make more money. But India is where the energy is. You will not find fintech the way it is in India than anywhere else. I took my booster dose in 2 minutes. It was already updated in Arogya Setu. That's India today. A lot of opportunity today is in India. I'm not saying you shouldn't take opportunities abroad, and I'm sure many of you would want that as an option. But India is so aggressive in this, and I think so much happening here. Don't miss out that opportunity. Learn to learn. I think knowing is a thing of the past. If you want to know how to build a bomb today, Google is there. If you want to know how to make a good sales pitch, Google is there. So to know things today is not great. If someone comes and tells me, I know who are the last 25 years winners of the PGA Golf Championship in Europe, I may say no at that point in time, but I can find out. It's not more than 5 minutes work for me. But learn to learn what you want to grow into. If you think that something is there that you want to learn, then deep dive into that. So make sure you know how to learn. Don't get on the comfort level saying that, no, I know this. I don't think so. Learn. So I hope you got the difference between learning and knowing, because I don't think so. To know something today is anything great. Essentially. Okay, cool. So that's pretty much about what I wanted to share with you guys. I hope it was helpful. Happy to take any questions if any of you have any.
Thank you, sir. We'll be opening up for questions now. Please, guys, raise your hands. Yes, Adhish, you might go with a question.
Oh yeah. Hello, sir. Recently, there was a report by PwC India that startup funding in India has come to a 2-year low, and especially in this quarter, and especially startups at an early stage are struggling to get funding. So, if I want to start a startup at this stage of time, what should be my strategy? Should I bootstrap it and start it at a small scale and hope to get an investment later on? Or should I just wait for this time to pass on and start it at a little later stage?
So I'll give you my answer. Obviously, there's no right answer to your question. It's all contextual in nature, but I'll give you what I think is best. You should never delay anything if you're confident of something. So if you know that you have a startup idea that will solve an A problem and you know that you can execute it well with the right team, my take is you should never delay it. A funding winter does not necessarily mean that there is no money. There is money even today. There are companies still, and with the China blowout in the trade deals and the UK blowout in the trade deals, the inflows expected into India is significantly large. So without doubt, I don't think so you'll ever be short of a funding winter. But I want to go back to one point that you said. Should I bootstrap it or should I take a funding? Now, this is again my personal belief, buddy, is that if you're confident of a startup and you are confident of the product or the service that you're going to offer, do it yourself. Start by doing it yourself. Prove it that you can do it. If you're just going to go and ask for somebody else's money, remember you're going to listen to whatever they say too. Then it's not your startup anymore. So as much as my only request to people who believe that funding is required for everything, then also responsibility will also go away too. If you can bootstrap it, if you can run something of your own, don't even think twice, Adish. Just go for it. Or go with family and friends, go with the limited funding, just to get your thing, to prove that you can get this done. I've invested in more than 8 companies to date in the last 3 years. I've formed a very simple 4-point philosophy. 1, the person that I'm investing in, or the company that the founders that I'm investing in, I should know either directly or I should know from a 1 point of separation. That is somebody I know. That's it. The reason for that is because I want to know that there is someone else in this ecosystem that knows that person. I'll not invest in someone blindly. As such, number 1. Number 2, I will only invest in a company that at least understands profitability. If someone comes to me with a pitch deck that says that, hey, you know what, this is my revenue, this is my ARR, this is my GMV, this is etc., with no slide on profit, I get worried. Which means you're not building a company for profitability. And you can see that in many of the stock exchange programs today. They don't have profit, but they're still there losing money. Right? This is my philosophy. I'm not saying it should be anyone's philosophy. This is my philosophy. Third one, as an investor, I have to add value. I may not come on the board, I may not be a representative with them, but in some form, I should be able to add value to that company. Number 3. Number 4, someone in the founding team or at least in the immediate leadership team should be from the domain that they are operating. Now, this is a little tricky because today a lot of IIT, IIM people are setting up companies and they may not come with the necessary domain experience, which is why I'm saying it may not be the founders, but at least in the leadership team, there should be someone who comes from the domain. Why? Because domain has experience, domain has knowledge. You just couldn't assume and walk away from that. So those are my takes. Again, like I said, it's my context. It could be very different against your startup.
Thank you, sir.
Bilal, you might go next.
Good morning, sir. So my question is that if an entrepreneur feels he or she has a unique idea, but could be copied by a big giants in the same segment, what should he or she strategically do in order to grow and maintain a fair share in a market?
You'll have to be fast, you'll have to scale. Because if it's an idea that can be copied or regenerated by a larger, bigger player, you are not battling the idea, you're battling scale. So you will have to plan yourself. Why did, there's I think a meme that I was seeing that all fintech companies want to be banks and all banks want to have a product, an app, right? So, but why did fintech companies get scale when the banks could have easily redeployed? Because banking, the organizations that are large sometimes also have a tendency to not change. They're not used, they're not comfortable. So a startup idea always will be successful because they will be willing to be agile and change. And I think that's always an advantage that you will carry. So, but that being said, you have to operate at speed and scale. If you don't plan that out early in the beginning, then you can easily get consumed by a copycat.
Thank you, sir.
Soumya, you might go next.
Hello, sir.
Yes, Soumya.
Yes, sir. Actually, my question is related to the ideas of seasonal businesses. Like once we have an idea which could be scaled only for a few months, so like how can we manage finances in that aspect?
So then,
like for the months.
Sure. Then variability is the name of the game, right? If your revenue format is seasonal, then so does your cost format have to be. So you will have to identify triggers within your business line on what can be seasonal. So that's where, for example, I was telling you about Amazon contractual workforce come to Quess. Now, why do they give me that contract workforce? Amazon can hire themselves. It's because they see this huge surges in Diwali. They see this huge surges in Christmas of spend. Now, they cannot hire a large full-time team to have for the entire year. So they come to firms like us and hire contractual workers. What they're basically doing is variabilizing their human resource cost for the surge. And so you will need to identify the cost elements in your products or in your cost to see what can be variables. Number one. Number two, depending only on seasonal revenue would also mean that you have to also be expecting bad years and good years more than a normal. So as a business leader, I've always said, you need to always have a annuity-based revenue stream going before investing into seasonal streams. Because the annuity revenue streams are the ones that keep you going. And the seasonal streams is what gives you the pile up, and like the Zoom and the Apple ad that I showed, you need to identify a revenue stream. But let's say worst case scenario that the only model that you will make money is through seasonal streams, etc. Then you'll have to make sure that those seasonal streams are strong enough to cover up for the non-seasonal streams. A bar or a pub is a very good example. A bar or a pub makes money during weekends. It doesn't make as much as money as it does through the week, yet they exist. Why? Because the weekends are significant contributors to the rest of the week. And that keeps it going as such, right? So India, thankfully, is still a month salary based, a month payout based, month tax out based. You pay it only once. Don't pay it twice or thrice in a year, in a month, like the US and Europe. So you can choose to have seasonals within the month or seasonals within the quarter. to still manage your business, but know exactly when those variables hit in and they're good enough to cover you up for the bad time or downtime.
Thank you, sir.
Harsh, you may go next.
Good morning, sir. So the question that I have is, recently we have seen that few firms have massively cut down their workforce and are spending more for promotional campaigns and social causes. As an entrepreneur yourself, how do you think firms can strike a balance between product development and promotional strategies?
It's a very harsh. It's an interesting question. I'm not sure if I'm able to see the connection between employee layoffs and promotional content. I'll take the second part of your question, which is your product development and promotion. Now, product development is a function of the solution you're providing. So you cannot stay away from the cost that you're investing there. You have to just make sure that you don't end up spending too much there or too little there, because without that, your product doesn't exist. No? Without promotion in today's world, at least social promotions, etc., you will not be visible. And therefore, promotions allow you to get that revenue streams kicked in. And so for a fair amount of time, both have to go hand in hand. But as time progresses, you could choose to downplay your product development to rake in more revenue. Okay, it's like a pharma company trying to come out with a medical product. It may happen in a year, it may happen in 10 years. Right? But once they develop the product, then the promotion is super fast. Why? Because they need to get the product out, because they waited for 5 years for that product to come out. Right? So you will have to play that up and down game, and that comes with experience and what kind of product you're developing, what is the stage time that the releases that happen there, how often should you do the releases. It depends contextual as such. Now, I'll go back to the layoffs part and the expense part. I'll treat layoffs. See, layoffs is a function of multiple factors. It could be because you want to reduce your cost. It could be because you want to be more efficient at work. You might have overhired people. It could be because of the fact that business in itself, the industry in itself is going through a tough time and you don't want to be sitting on cost. So layoffs are a function of multiple aspects. But I can quite guarantee you today, at least from an Indian context, layoff is the last thing that a founder has in his mind. Because once you do a layoff, you are known in the world, in that industry, that you will take a hard call on people, right? And therefore, it's always the last option that one has. But like I said, life is about uncertainties. Business is also about uncertainties. And therefore, a founder or an entrepreneur should always be willing to take these hard decisions if it needs be. And now, promotional expenses are linked to revenue. Layoffs is linked to cost. You need to figure out which one is more critical for that period and take those calls. As such. You can't end up spending. You can't. I remember many years ago, a client of mine was laying off people, but the leadership was partying in Las Vegas. Right. So you need to also be clear about how you do it. It cannot be just here and there.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Harsh.
Harshit, you can go ahead with your question.
Hello, sir. Sir, my question is regarding like startups like Swiggy and Zomato. We see that they are in the business for 7-8 years now, and they're still showing less profits, or like we can say they're still reporting losses, and still they're raising funds. So I just wanted to know, like, what drives this? How are they still raising funds after all these losses?
Good question, and this is something which everyone gets usually. It's the scale. The scale at which they are operating today is significantly large, that once they turn a profit, they will be on significant volumes of profit. I'll give you a very simple example. If you go to a Disneyland or an amusement park, now you can imagine the amount of machinery and people that an amusement park needs. It takes around 2-3 years or maybe more to build a Disneyland today, right? Now, just when they open the gates, that doesn't mean they become profitable, because they have sunk cost for 3 to 4 years, right? But once they're open, your revenue streams are consistently steady, and you're not redoing the product here anymore. The Ferris wheel is a Ferris wheel, roller coaster is a roller coaster. Nothing is changing. The only OPEX that you have is maintenance and people. That's it, right? So now, whatever you're adding as revenue is coming straight into the books of profit with the minus of the cost of OPEX cost that you have. And once you turn a profit, which I think is between 2 to 3 years of time, if I'm not mistaken, depends, 2 to 3 years of time. After that, it's all profit.
Yeah.
Right. And then after some time, you will see a new ride, 2 rides, 3 rides coming because you have to get excitement going. So it's similar, right? So India is so large that why people are putting in money into these companies is because the minute they do turn a profit, which they will, they have to, right? And if they turn a profit, then after that, it just, that's what happened in Indigo. Indigo also showed a lot of losses for many years. But once they turned a profit, their game was different. And then now they become the largest player in the country. You know? So that's the math behind it.
Got it, sir. Thank you.
But you can't be arrogant and keep raising money and not make profits. I think investors have become too smart nowadays. They will ask you profits.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Sir, we have today's last question. Bhakti, you can go ahead.
Yes, Bhakti.
Bhakti, you're on mute.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Yes, sir. So it's I was saying it's a great session. You gave us great practicalities. That's great. So my question is, as we are shifting from government jobs to private jobs, and as you said, like then to the contractual based jobs. So the question is COVID acted as a catalyst, or you think even if COVID won't happen to us, we would be on the similar kind of page in the year 2022?
No, it was already happening, Bhakti. Even before COVID, this transition was happening, but I think it accelerated. So I think the need for, so any recession, even 2009 when the recession happened, even when any recession or market industry impact that happens, you will see fixed workforces and fixed costs moving into variable costs. You will see that, right? So I think it's the COVID just accelerated that behavior like it did for digital adoption. It was not that people did not adopt digital, but it got accelerated because of COVID. So so it is only that it went faster and people adopted the gig work and all that a lot faster. And because there were companies today that I know that wouldn't even want to hire a freelancer because they were scared about their data. Right. And they wouldn't hire. So, but today a lot of companies have changed their mindset. Okay, we will hire, but these are the rules. Right. And some of them are even more flexible. You go work wherever you want. Right. So I think, and then that is also now impacting the employee behavior. So the employee is also saying that why should I stay with one job? Why shouldn't I do 2-3 jobs as a freelancer? And it's very common in US and Europe. There are people who do 2-3 jobs at the same time, but they don't have a fixed fee for a fixed salary. So they work on a freelancer income. But Indians are still not there yet. Indians would like to still have a salary that comes home every month. I think that's what I understand. I don't know about all of you kids, but at least I see most of them, at least they want one salary. They know. But in the US, they're okay. They'll get 6 months, 3 years of salary. They'll take a break, go vacation somewhere and come back. And then work again for another year, right? We are not there. I don't think so we're there yet. But yeah, so that's the point. I think it just accelerated, but I don't think so it shifted the model. It was already happening.
So what do you think, as like we have been listening, this recession is coming. So how do you think recession will change this situation?
It will just accelerate it further. It will ask companies to be more efficient on cost. It will play a lot on gross margin. You will see consolidation happening. It will show all the behaviors of any regular recession. And you won't see anything different because we just came out of COVID, Bhakti. So a lot of companies today have multiple business continuity plans in place. And they will just employ them and they will put them in implementation stage and get them going. So you will see companies laying off, you will see companies rationalizing, you will see a companies expanding, you will see companies going berserk on sales because this is the time to focus on sales and stuff like that. So just normal recessionary behavior, nothing new. I don't think so you'll see anything. Companies that don't focus on the right things will shut down, close shop.
Yes, thank you, sir. It answered my question.
Thank you, sir. I'd just like to wind up by giving a brief summary. This was indeed a very insightful session, and we have a host of takeaways from the same. Sir started the session with his personal and professional journey. Then he briefed about Quess's journey from its inception to what it is today. He highlighted the movement of job interest from stable government job to very flexible contract mode jobs and the importance of culture in an organization and its complementary nature with strategy. He also talked about choice between complaint and change, where he highlighted the importance of complaints as a feedback loop for change and development. Then he explained about the gut feeling, which is a function of experience while talking about failures as an experience. Finally, he contrasted the competency with respect to curiosity and highlighted the importance of being curious as well as competent. On the behalf of the entire fraternity of IIT Kanpur, we would like to wholeheartedly thank you for taking your time out from your busy schedule on a weekend to share your experience with us. As a token of gratitude, sir, we have planted a sapling at Sundarban National Park on your behalf, the certificate of which we would be sharing with you very soon. With this, on behalf of the Alumni and Corporate Relations Committee, MBA at IIT Kanpur, I'd like to formally conclude the event. Once again, thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for coming on a Sunday. Take care and all the very best to you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.